He helped start 1 Million Cups. So this was perhaps not our smoothest day in 1 Million Cups, as most of the crowd would admit. But Tom was formerly at Kaufman Foundation and was part of the team that started the program quite a number of years ago, I guess now. And so we have a lot to thank Tom for. It brings us together every week. He was recruited to NCID about 3 years ago and has greatly extended the offerings of that grant program. So he's here to talk today about Ice House, the newest program, and the upcoming Entrepreneurship Summit. So please give Tom a warm welcome.
Do I really need this?
Okay.
Put that over here right now, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Thank you, Krista, for the introduction and warm welcome. And apologies, because I know some of you have already heard the origin story of 1 Million Cups, but I'll do 60 more seconds on that. As many cool entrepreneurial endeavors are apt to do, it started as something else intentionally. We're all friends and we're close, so we'll keep it all here in the room. We won't take this publicly. But the Kaufman Foundation is like, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory of entrepreneurship in Kansas City. If you ever get a chance to go, I highly recommend it. It's like Disneyland. Go visit the campus, see where all the magic happens. And the sad fact was, as the Vice President of Entrepreneurship there and having a $20 million a year portfolio of programming, very few employees actually were tethered to the local entrepreneurial community in Kansas City. And so my team just was like, we lamented this fact and debated like, how can we expose more of the staff at the foundation to the entrepreneurial community that was in our backyard, and how could we have an excuse to open the doors to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory? And by the way, it wasn't my creation of that metaphor. Somebody described it to me at one of the first public sessions of 1 Million Cups. They came up to me and said, "You don't understand. Like, people are dying to get into this place, but we've never had the golden ticket." And so when we started 1 Million Cups, we opened the doors. And we get a few more people than we have here this morning, about 200 to 300 every Wednesday, show up in Kansas City. But I mean, that is the mothership, so you'd expect that. But again, it was intended, it was private. So we did it over breakfast. We invited 2 entrepreneurs to come in every week. And then, take some Q&A. It was meant as an employee education program, so that they could start thinking about and asking the kinds of questions that we addressed in the programming that we did through our grant making. And then after about 2 months of this, we were like, there's some nutritional value to the entrepreneurs of doing this. And so we speculated, what if we opened it to the public, and the rest is history. I think there's 100 in some cities now.
180, I think.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, right? Things that turn into something great a lot of times start off as something different. And as entrepreneurs, we have to be open for the idea of pivoting and changing and reacting to market conditions and frankly capitalizing on opportunities as we see them. So, enough plug for Kaufman and 1MC. NCID. For those of you who don't know, we are an independent private foundation. So we're a private foundation, a 501c3, not a public charity. There's a nuance to that. And I throw in that word independent in front of it, which a lot of people don't. But I do that to differentiate the fact that, unlike the Kaufman Foundation, where there was a named benefactor, Mr. Kaufman or Mr. K, as he's affectionately referred to in Kansas City, there's donor intent that guides the foundation. So think of the Gates Foundation, right? Bill determines what the foundation is going to do. And he can show up one morning in the office and say, hey, today I want all the resources of the foundation to be focused on, food insecurity or homelessness. So there's a guiding principle, or what we call donor intent, that guides the direction and mission of the organization. We don't have that. We don't have a Mr. K. We don't have a Bill Gates, unfortunately. I love some of his sweet, sweet money. But so we have this independence from a standpoint of a governance standpoint, where we can decide what should be the priorities of the organization and set that direction. So that is done through a compromise process between our board of directors. We have 9 currently. sitting in the back, Lauren McCullough. I'm sure some of you know her because she has run our labs program for the last several cohorts. And collectively, we decide and determine what our direction and priorities should be. Despite having NC in our name, we're not funded by the state. We don't get a dime from the federal government, state government. We don't take money from anybody. We have our own money. We have an endowment that, depending upon where markets close on any given day, is around 52 million. And that throws off cash, and we use that cash to fund our grants and programs. So we run a strategic combination of grants and programs. Anybody here familiar with our grant program, our $50,000 seed program, and our $10,000 micro? There's a few. So Monday, the fall cycle closed. 182, is that on seed, and 156 on micro? So, we got, the seed was unusually, or just a little bit above normal. It's usually our spring cycle that's a little heavier. So that's 182 applications for 6 to 8 $50,000 grants we'll make. And then on the micro, we have 156, and we'll make between 15 to 20 $10,000 grants. I should mention as an aside, having been in this space, this industry, doing what I'm doing for about 15 years now, I am unaware of any organization in the United States, or internationally for that matter, that just gives away as much money as we do. I was a founder of a similar organization in Northeast Ohio called Jumpstart that deployed as much capital, but it was equity. So companies would get money, but they had to give up equity, right? And that's the more common model. And it is a very common model, and there's good reason for that being a replicable model. Because 15 years in now, NCIDEA is completely self-funded, and their balance sheet is nearly $250 million. They had, in 2017, they actually had a unicorn exit. So a company that they did very early stage funding in, saw it through the years, helped it out, got acquired for about $1.3 billion. So yeah, that threw about $30 million back onto the balance sheet because they run the cap table for a fair amount. So, sorry, got off to the side on that. I don't know of any organization that just gives away more money than we do. All right, so it's a pretty good gig if you can get it. Short of Uncle Frank writing you a check with no expectations of ever getting paid back, free money is a good way to go. So that's what we've been known for historically, the seed program. Micro's new. For those of you who care to know why we did micro, we are always, after every cycle, we torture ourselves through a post-mortem. We're very wickedly committed to process improvement. And one of the things that we had an epiphany on was, by virtue of the competitive process of persevering in the $50,000 seed grant, companies that could even be competitive had to, by default, be at a certain stage. And we wondered if we weren't, by proxy or by process, foregoing helping things that could have promise, but would be earlier stage, and ergo not competitive in the seed stage, in the seed grant application. So we did a pilot last year to say, well, okay, let's do this micro. So we'll go way earlier stage, smaller dollars, obviously, because it's earlier stage, but then maybe we'll see greater participation statewide, maybe greater participation from ethnicity, gender, and geography. And we are now in our third cycle, and the data would bear out that we guessed right. We are seeing disproportionately high participation, in particular female applicants, much like this room. That's a bad joke I'm making. Very heavily male. Are they always this male dominated? Excuse that way, huh? We gotta get the ladies in the room, right? So yeah, we saw like over 50% of the micros were going to female founders, and very diversified out of the triangle. So we were seeing a lot of that stuff, and that's the reason why we're doing it. It's also a nice pipeline for the seed. So we get the seed, pun intended, I guess, or not pun, but whatever. We get the seed with a little bit of the micro, and then those micros that keep persevering 6 months or 12 months, because we do it twice a year. We do a fall and spring cycle. And so we've had, I think, 2 micro grantees from the original cohort that persevered to win the seed grant a year later.
One every cycle.
Say again?
One every cycle.
Okay. So that's kind of what we've been known to do, and that's I'll call that our B2C strategy. So that's us helping entrepreneurs directly as our clients, our constituents. We are also have a B2B strategy where we have, across the state, we have funded 24 entrepreneurial support organizations. American Underground is one of them, for example. HQ in Raleigh is one of them. First Flight Venture Center over in the Triangle, over in RTP is one of them. 24 organizations across the state receive between $100 grand and $250 grand to support entrepreneurs directly. So we've got this kind of statewide network, and that's our B2B strategy. So it's really just supporting their capacity building so that they can help more people. They're force multipliers for us. And so now that we've got this statewide network, we've got a couple great direct programs. We really had to come up with a way to fill the top of the funnel. So, what can we do from an offering standpoint of engagement? Because as great as like all of our seed and micro programming is, that already, you guys are already, you have the gene mutation or you've been infected, right? So I don't need to sit up here and evangelize the gospel of entrepreneurship to you. You get it by virtue of the fact you're sitting in this room, right? But our greatest natural resource, beyond anything we can harvest from the sun, the wind, or dig up from the ground, if we still want to do that, is the untapped economic potential of people, right? Because entrepreneurs primarily do 3 things. They create the new. They're solving problems for society. They create jobs. All net new job growth in this country comes from nascent firms 5 years old or younger. If you think about that, right, if you're CEO of a big co, you are incentivized, you are pressured, shareholder, right? That means productivity, which is code for do more with less employees. And I'm not shitting on big companies, like they have a role in the economy. It's important that they thrive and survive as well. But what I'm saying is when you're a startup, all you have are employees. So that's why the data bears out that the startup ecosystem nationally is our greatest job creating. And then the third thing that entrepreneurs do is they create the wealth in the country that has societal benefit and impact beyond just job creation or tax base, right? You go to Kansas City, it's super obvious what Mr. K has done, right? He saved baseball. So he was the former owner of the Royals, and when Major League Baseball was going to move him out of Kansas City, he said, nope, it's not going to happen. To say nothing of the museums and the hospital wings and the school districts and the food pantries and everything else that gets funded, right? That's not the business of government. A lot of that stuff gets funded by successful entrepreneurs that create this wealth that benefits the community. So those being the 3 things that entrepreneurs do, and us needing a way to fill the top of the funnel, we had to come up with an offering that we could go statewide to inspire people to consider or to support people with these notions, because everybody has the same latent ability to do something entrepreneurial. That is, in my humble opinion, equally distributed in our DNA. We're all hardwired for it. What's not equally distributed is access to capital, network, resources, help, right? Here in the Triangle, that's a hard message to really say because, again, as somebody who's done this work literally from Bangladesh to Brazil to Detroit, the Triangle is one of the best ecosystem hubs in the country. But that is very limited, right? And then there's like a little outpost in the Triad, and the great country of Mecklenburg has some resources, right? So, but the rest of the state does not participate at that level. I mean, if you look at the economic output and performance and potential of like east of 95, it gets bleak, right? So what can we do for them? And how can we inspire people? We needed something to tool. So we are now embracing and using a community education program called the Ice House Entrepreneurship Program. The Ice House Entrepreneurship Program was like 1 Million Cups, a program I gave birth to at Kaufman. It was the last program I launched before I left Kaufman. And it really was, I would say tongue-in-cheek, it was the entrepreneurial mindset curriculum that I wish I had been able to take before I did my first one, probably if I'm being honest, my first 3 startups. Because I was really stupid and a slow learner. And, I had to learn by default that I would have to, persevere, that I had to really understand critical thinking, problem solving. I had to understand the trials of limited resources, right? Mind you, what I just said was nothing about writing a business plan, doing customer validation, creating an MVP. I'm talking about the stuff that comes before all that. Again, waste is on you. You have figured that out, again, by virtue of being here, right? But you're in the 1% of the population, and I'm trying to activate through Ice House the 99% in the state. Because if we start doing that, that is, as cliche as it is to say, that's a rising tide, right? And that starts something. So, so that's what we're doing. We put a stake in the ground last year when we announced the Ice House program to get 100,000 people in the state, through an Ice House program. It is a teach-the-teacher model, so we have education partners. Mostly we targeted the state's community college system, the SBCs, the small business centers, and I'm very excited as of our last facilitator training in August, we were over in Wilson, we now have 22 of the state's public library systems on board as well. So I'm looking for channels across the state that have statewide coverage and distribution capacity to offer the programming, and it's done through a facilitated course. So it's a teach-the-teacher model where we take instructors and we teach them over a 3-day period how to teach the Ice House program. And teach is the wrong word, it's how to facilitate it. The program teaches for itself. The facilitators, when you think about it, like we're talking community college faculty, right? You don't have to be a successful cash-out entrepreneur to facilitate the Ice House program. The experts are in the program. It's an online component. It's a product that we did after interviewing 300 entrepreneurs from across the country, and every slice of humanity is represented, and it's really, again, the underlying beliefs and assumptions that drive successful entrepreneurs. That's the essence that we're trying to distill with that. And so our hopes, and I'll share this little secret because we're all friends, our hopes are that, if we hit that 100,000 mark, some percent, small, admittedly, 2-3%, but they're going to activate, and they're going to set off a beacon. And then hopefully, wherever they are in the state, through our ecosystem partner network, we'll have somebody that can help triage them when they set off their Roman candle. Like, I'm ready, I need help, how do I engage, how do I plug in? So that's kind of it in a nutshell on Ice House. I'll take a pause there. Anybody got questions before I talk about the summit?
Actually, are you tying into the launch programs, like my city, it's all Wake County, Durham, and all that? Is that part of any of your wheelhouse where you've been involved in?
So several of those programs are using components of our curriculum. A couple of them are. Yeah. A couple of them are even engaged grantees of ours, so we've even thrown a little bit of money behind it and given access to the programming. Our goal is to just basically make it available, as available as possible. To that end, through a generous gift of an anonymous benefactor, we can now offer the licenses to the course for free. That was big, because in the first year when we were rolling this out, there was still a $100 per student cost, and that was an obstacle for, maybe Wake Tech can afford that, but, you're out Halifax Community College or some round six, right? That's hard. So the board worked out a deal, and like I said, a generous donation. We can now offer the digital license for free. So we have a block of 100,000 licenses for the curriculum that we're going to use to support that. So any of these programs that they're willing to augment or want to use a full cloth, they're welcome to. And yeah, if you got ideas as to other partners, I mean, we've educated the CDFIs in the state, like I said, the SBCs in the Community College Network, both Dan Shaw, the director of the SBCs, and Peter Marsh, as a community college system.
Yeah, I mean, your point's well taken, because I actually was trying to take that program out to, like, say, Chatham County, example. The resource pool there is totally different from the Wayne County side and all that. So that's why it's interesting, you're saying that, and I mean, we talk offline, but taking that program and trying to get to those areas that I consider that are underutilized, and, you know, I think tremendous growth centers in the future is important.
I agree. And I would use this word, if I may, the need is greater.
Yes.
Right?
I was
In the triangle, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting 10 programs
Yeah.
that help entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's a total different.
But
And I saw that when I tried to do things out there. I mean, the economic person in Chatham County hit me over the head saying, oh, in Apex, there's 60-some thousand people. In the county, there's 60-some thousand. I'm like, so it's a whole different mindset, totally different.
yeah, we have counties in this great state that have less than 5,000 people, right? So what do you do for them?
Yeah.
Density, I had a day-long board meeting yesterday, so the whole board and the majority of the staff were together for the entire day and into the evening because we were thinking through our strategy and our evolution. And one of the things that we're currently considering is physical expansion of, NCIDEA, or we might consider now, we're using the euphemistic term lily pad, kind of where we will put in place. But when you say ambition-wise, like let's go help rural, in this work, and I've been doing this long enough now that I've seen what I classify or I call the curse of good intentions, right? We mean well, you look at the data, reasonable people that care about human beings can say, we got to do something, right? But the challenges are vast, and you can't create something from nothing. So if you don't have a certain density, it doesn't matter, right? And you're well intended, but you're going to squander time, treasure, and talent doing that. So we're trying to crack this nut as we speak. So one of the things that we're going to likely do and maybe announce, and this will be my segue to talk about the summit, is that if we lily pad, we will only do so in a public-private partnership. So wherever we look to put down, an outpost, it'll be co-funded, skin in the game, and co-committed to the success by a whole cadre of stakeholders. Otherwise, I won't waste our time, money, and aggression, because it'll be like nuts trying to push that bill up and up.
I actually believe you could fix some of that, but the politics are going to be the interesting part in some of those areas.
Yeah, so again, we're friends, so I'll just share. All this is fluid, so if this is being recorded, none of this is kind of free. But we were thinking it's got to be where we would go. The MOU would stipulate to a minimum 5-year commitment, so that we just transcend election cycles and all that political BS. And and it's going to be a heavy lift, but there's also a lot of really good organizations in the state, philanthropic organizations in the state. And I think what I'm trying to do is change the narrative around, so much of them fund what I call, that they're trying to mitigate suffering, right? There's people in need, but really that's the role of charity, and the role of philanthropy is to address the causes of suffering, right? So if you have economically disenfranchised populations in certain specific geographic areas that need immediate help, then they should be helped. If their kids going to bed hungry, feed them by all means. right? There are people that are homeless, help them with shelter by all means. But somebody needs to take a step back and go, why are so many people going to bed hungry? Why are so many people, homeless? Entrepreneurship is, in my humble opinion, the secret weapon of that. It's also a great Trojan horse for social engineering. Because if you start building something of value for you, your family, and your community, it has this kind of viral effect, and it sucks other people into it, and it adds to a certain stability. The team is tired of hearing me say this. We're in scary times right now. I don't know if any of you know this, but we're going into an election cycle, I'm told. And the tribalism that is, churning out of this is really bad for society. And I'm trying not to be red or blue in this narrative. I'm just saying it's bad. And if you're doing economic development and you're helping people realize their full entrepreneurial potential, and they're building something of value for themselves, their communities, that others are participating in, we can start transcending that tribal bullshit and focus on outcomes instead. And maybe, just maybe, if I could really dream it, be a little more, tolerant, patient with one another, and say, all right, I might not be down with your hue, your shade of politics, but you know what? You're a pretty decent human being. We're building something of value together, so let's just do that. Right? And let the other stuff. It also, in my humble opinion, empowers people to be less susceptible to the perversions of the policymakers.
Amen.
I got a question for you. What age are you targeting with the Ice House initiative?
So it's being deployed in a multitude of ways. Everything from Town Hall down at UNC Pembroke is offering it down there in Lumberton to 8th graders. We have postdoc programs. I think Duke Law is considering it right now for their law school. We've had from postdoc to 8th grade. We have prison reentry programs using it, so recidivism mitigation. We have CDFIs that are using it just for people that come to them for money so that they're smarter about it. We're testing it right now in the workforce development aspect, so working in partnership with the World Center. We're working in 4 communities across the state that have had a very large plant closing, right? And that activity, the exercise that's commonly done is let's get you ready to be employed by the next big code that's going to come in. We want to say to some subset of them, why don't you consider starting a company and create the job that you want for yourself? So it's all over the map. I'm fond of saying we're only limited by our imagination on how we can apply this because, newsflash, we call it an entrepreneurial mindset education program. It's a life hack. It's not about starting and growing a company. We've got tons of those programs, right? This is just, it's empowerment. Too many people, again, exacerbated, sorry for being political for 1 second, but part of what's feeding the problem, the environment we have right now is a learned helplessness that has infected this country. I traveled the world, spreading the gospel of entrepreneurship. When we launched Ice House, the fastest growth of it is in Latin America, not even in the U.S. We've lost our swerve in the U.S. about entrepreneurship. We were founded by entrepreneurs. And it goes to this learned helplessness that we have. And so through the entrepreneurial mindset, what we do is we help people realize the benefit of empowerment, self-empowerment. You are the people you're waiting for, right?
The follow-on to that was, I was yesterday attending an economic development meeting primarily hosted by the British American Council. And they were talking about the challenges that they're seeing with some of their, in German companies, other foreign companies, it doesn't matter from where, U.S. otherwise, in Eastern North Carolina, and the challenges they're having with workforce labor, because they don't see themselves like the triangle. As you said, we can look around and we see entrepreneurs everywhere, at every corner, right? We've got somebody to help. The challenges they're seeing in these remote corners is they don't have any of us to look at as role models, right? So they don't believe that they can start or have the resources to do that, right? So it does go back to the mindset. And one suggestion that I thought was really, really interesting, and Mark, this can get maybe to the launch city as well. One entrepreneur said, well, why don't we just take the rural shopping centers in these places that don't have these role models, and let's infuse them with ideas and create a co-working space. Have the cities donate the empty shopping mall, and let's create a YouTube channel. Let's bring them in, middle school, high school kids, give them a place to congregate, co-create, infuse them with some of this curriculum, guide them from afar, because we can all do it online now, and then realize and help bring awareness to the possibilities more than anything else. And I thought that was a really, really interesting notion that might fit in also with the High House program as well.
I think it's what we're going to see is there, and we're seeing it in the state of North Carolina. We see it. It's the idea. There are certain communities across the state. They've read the tea leaves. They've hit the panic button, and they're being inspired now to action, right? And some of them will do really good things. Some of them will do not so good things. But at least they're going to try some, and then some are just going to ignore it and dig in. And we're going to see this gutting get even more polarized. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
On her comment, I mean, I think a lot of this, when you say mindset, I really do agree with this. Because we are in a bubble here. I mean, this is a bubble area that you have to look at that way, because the talent around here is flattening.
Exactly.
So you got to think out of that, because I really my bubble got popped when I was actually going out to the Chatham County side trying to do something, and what I ran into blew me away.
Right.
So
And that's
it
right
is.
next door. I think it was right.
It's not that far when you start thinking of that in those areas. But a lot of it is getting that knowledge out there, and you know what you're saying, getting that, teaching them in a lot of that. Once that's taught, I think it'll flourish into that part.
It'll take root. We can't predict exactly where it goes. It's the 1,000 lights, whatever, analysis. So I know we're already
Let's segue
late.
to the summit then. That's perfect segue.
I was just going to say, I know we're late, so get you out the door. So during another program of the Papa Foundation is called Global Entrepreneurship Week. It is every year the week before the Thanksgiving week, where there will be, on average, about 40,000 events all around the world celebrating entrepreneurship. So what we are going to be doing in partnership with the Governor's Entrepreneurship Council, on which I serve, NCIDEA is going to be hosting an annual statewide ecosystem summit. So it's going to be November 18th and 19th. The details are on our website. As a matter of fact, it's in the top nav bar of our site, which is ncida.org. You can see the details there. But it's basically going to be 2 days of this kind of dialogue. It's not going to be a parade of successful entrepreneurs that have cashed out. It's going to be more policy ones, partnerships, assets, best practices. What should we be doing to encourage, support, grow, sustain more and more entrepreneurs across all spectrums? So including, communities of color, women, and rural geographies, in addition to all the great stuff we already have up here in the Triangle Tribe in Charlotte, for example. So that's 18th and 19th. The site is live. We're taking registrations now. We're going to cap it at 300. And my guess is we're going to sell out pretty damn quick. Any questions?
Where is this summit?
It's going to be it's in Raleigh. It's at some building in North Hills. I don't know what it is, but it's in Raleigh. I've only been here 3.5 years, so I still I live in Hillsborough. If you want to know a good recommendation of restaurant in Hillsborough,
So it's on NCID.
ncidea.org.
And what is, and so, I'm just looking on your game.
Top right of the nav should be a summit button. That's in like home, programs, grants. Okay, that's a problem.
Lauren will help you find it.
Can you pull up the site real quick?
How much is it to attend?
$75. Cheap by any price.
Yeah, the right.
If any of y'all want to be,
Yeah,
if any of you,
if you go to the hamburger menu, it might be a little different on your mobile device. That might be where it's going to see, but it's going to be an app.
if any of you want to be a big baller sponsor, those are going quick. But yeah, we're gonna curate
Thank you very, very